Good evening, everyone. My name is Noah Rauch. I'm the Senior Vice President for Education and Public Programs here at the 9/11 Memorial and Museum, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all tonight to this very special program, along with all those tuning in to our live web broadcast at 911memorial.org/live. I would also like to extend a warm welcome to Ambassador Mohammed Hussein Bar al-Aloum and his colleagues from the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Iraq to the United Nations. Thank you for coming. Tonight, we are delighted to be joined by celebrated cellist and humanitarian Maestro Karim Wasfi. The former conductor of the Iraqi National Symphony Orchestra, Wasfi gained international attention in 2015 when a deadly attack in his Baghdad neighborhood prompted him to take his cello out into the streets for a spontaneous performance. As Hans Christian Andersen wrote, "When words fail, music speaks." Following his performance, Wasfi went on to regularly perform these deliberate acts of resistance, playing his cello at the sites of terrorist attacks in Iraq, countering death and destruction with art and beauty. Wasfi is the founder and president of the Peace Through Arts Foundation, a nonprofit organization that serves his numerous cultural, diplomatic, and educational initiatives. He is also a fellow at the Geneva Center for Security Policy, was named the Humanitarian of the Year by the UAE Global Business Community, and was awarded the Asia Game Changers Award by the Asia Society and the Rockefeller Foundation. He has performed throughout the United States and around the world. Tonight, Maestro Wasfi will perform one of his site-specific compositions dedicated to the victims of the 9/11 attacks and the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. He will perform against the backdrop of a projection from the museum's Signing Steel, an interactive installation which allows museum visitors from all over the world to leave messages and reflections that speak to their visit to this site. After the performance, our Senior Director of Public and Professional Programs, Jessica Chen, will join him for a discussion about his work and his process, his experience in cultural diplomacy, and how he uses music for healing, cross-cultural dialogue, de-radicalization, and counterterrorism. As is abundantly clear, we are incredibly fortunate to have Maestro Wasfi here to share his music and his work with us. On behalf of the 9/11 Memorial and Museum, everyone here and everyone watching online, thank you. We want to thank him for sharing his time, his art, and his insights with us. And so, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Maestro Karim Wasfi to the stage.
Dignitaries, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Allow me to commence by a moment of silence in respect for the fallen ones from this country to Iraq, to other parts of the planet, those whom we have lost due to foreign acts of terror.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back, Maestro. Thank you so much for the performance.
Thank you.
So we're just here to talk a little bit about your process, about you, about your experience here in the museum, and then to open it up to the audience for any questions that they might have. So I thought I would begin by just thinking back to actually when we met this summer. We had you come and visit the museum for the first time and talk to us a little bit about the work you had done up to date in your very long career. You're a classically trained musician and conductor. You're a cultural diplomat. You've studied music, physics, philosophy. You've not only played in concert halls and at embassies, but you've also played in schools and in terror-affected areas all across Iraq and even in sites of tragedy around the world. So I'm curious kind of if we can just bring it closer to home a little bit. Have you tell us a little bit about where you were on 9/11 and maybe where that fits into this long life that you've already led?
Well, I was hoping for you not to remind me of that day, but it was a very extremely strange experience. I was actually driving from Bloomington, Indiana, where I was pursuing my education in higher education in conducting and cello performance. After I have left Yale, I decided to go to Bloomington because Indiana is a distinguished great school for music and science, and amongst other affiliations. But it was an anomaly that I was actually driving to Indianapolis Airport that morning, coming from Iraq and witnessing, growing up partially in Europe and then in Iraq, and witnessing instability and the grotesque impact of disagreement to the level of conflicts changing into full-range battles and killing machines, in reference to, of course, the conflict with Iran and then the Kuwait situation. And then, so I was actually driving with a friend to Indianapolis Airport, and I had left a message, ironically, the night before, telling my colleagues at the at stage, the theater that we had at Bloomington, Indiana, which is the second biggest after the Broadway, telling them that I might not be appearing the next morning in a very sarcastic way. And then things escalated that morning with a whole perspective of time non-existent anymore, and a very extremely uncomfortable decision that you have to make to transcend beyond the obstacles of what has actually taken place. Or do you go back in time and try to analyze? And do you just to absorb witnessing war and surviving war, trying to conceptualize in time and space what was that? What was and then the second, and then the third plane, and then within the couple of hours that we were heading to Indianapolis airport, it was an extreme time block and loss of consistency with anything. Probably communication was, as it is right now, communication is definitely at a wider range of function, and people are realizing things on a daily basis in a very momentous way. Possibly the same concerns that we had within different continents are repeating themselves because we don't learn from history. But then that level of insanity that can reach the ability to kill people you do not know necessarily, whether they agree with the cause or they disagree, or whether there is a cause to begin with. So it was a very mixed, a wide spectrum of mixed feelings in terms of not why anymore. It was the how. How can humans reach a level of function to that level of dysfunction, and to be able to pursue such actions of intimidation.
Yeah.
What is the power of conviction? What is it? I was wondering actually that morning if it was genetic, if it was utterly political, economical. What was this mix of insanity? So if more of this than trying to rationalize or legitimize or not legitimize, it was an extreme. Ironically, it had turned me into a defensive mode for an hour, trying to compare intellect, science. What is it that actually? What is it that would push a person simply into killing another person, not knowing what the cause is?
Sure. And, thinking about 9/11's longer legacy and thinking how it reaches to your home in Iraq. In 2015, or since 2015, you've performed at approximately 25 destroyed sites, sites that have experienced trauma and violence. And a video of you in particular performing in Baghdad at the scenes of suicide attacks that had occurred a couple hours before. I'm curious, what is your thinking about your process and thinking about music and its role in these situations? Can you talk a little bit about what it means for you to bring music to these spaces and what that music provides, or what you're hoping to accomplish with it?
It was a message of dedication and perseverance and refinement and civilization, respect and recognition for civility. And I couldn't question that in a country like Iraq, because as we know it so far, it was, if not the cradle of civilization, it was one of the very first civilized groups. We had law, a constitution, and problems and wars and battles. This is a continuous issue with powers and politics, but that was irrelevant. I had worked extremely with extreme dedication prior to 2015 in my capacity as the chief conductor of the Iraqi National Symphony between 2007 through 2012, witnessing a very palpable and obvious ascending line of paradigm shifts and change and positive change, despite disagreements and regional disagreements and politics and everything else. Music as a universal language that is related, that is connected directly to brain function, to neuroscience, to frequency, vibration, to creation, was means of instilling and assuring the society and the nation, as much as I thought that the outreach would achieve, that the civility and perseverance is the way to proceed against intimidation and radicalization and all the isms that we know. So it was not much of a reaction, but it was an action, a personal message that I wanted to convey and encourage everyone else I knew into taking the battle into their own hands and turning every element of life in the streets of Iraq or the world into time and space for refinement and civility and perseverance and dedication towards the world that we would like to live. Yeah. It was a message of encouragement. I had done within the societal engagement and the community outreach that we had managed as of 2007 through 2012, and then I decided to go back to Iraq. I was globalizing my efforts with Peace Through Arts that I have created in Baghdad in 2008 to encourage the youth, the future leaders, and to inspire and to share science, a sort of a little academia that, that we had during our history in the Roman, in the Greek method of outreach, but it was not a replica of Plato's. It was more the concept of, we have almost a civil war. We had so much instability, and they cannot rely only on the government to resolve that. It had to be at the grassroots level, with the people, for the people. And on the personal level, I had worked hard enough to be able to travel the world prior to that, and lots of fellow Iraqis did not actually have the opportunity in the 80s or 70s or 90s due to sanctions and so forth and so on, as in many other nations' situations. So it was a simultaneous, holistic approach, multifaceted towards development. And then we have witnessed a sort of stability that was partially regional and partially very localized in Iraq in 2010 through what happened in June of 2014. So the whole concept, the whole battle had changed. And the complications, the regional complications, the global complications, and the social media and the different aspects of connectivity and interdependence, as well as the speed in which the different communities around the world were realizing how much there is of disagreement, had us consider to change the rules of engagement. It's sounding more like militarized terminologies I'm using, but it was actually a battle. Yeah. So 2014, I decided to, instead of maintaining that level, preserving the momentum globally, to head back to Iraq, because I felt the responsibility to be there and to help and to offer and to share with everyone, not only in Iraq, but in the Middle East and probably in the world, some positive aspects of what can actually work out. And then that was the level of engagement. I thought that we could range against radicalization and extremism by functioning on the personal level. Within the molecule, as I usually call it, within a person is the is the essence of the basic concrete foundation for a foundation of refinement and civility, as opposed to enforcing anything. I wasn't enforcing any genre or any sort of ideologies in the streets of Baghdad, as opposed to, versus actually it was an effort to encourage respecting life and not to be intimidated by gruesome acts of terror.
What you say about music as a universal language, I think, really translates in this situation. So I do want to talk a little bit about your musical method. So you've described, composing in these situations as spontaneous composition and as it being a form of resistance. And we've talked a little too about how, the neuroscience of music as well, and that the spontaneous composition that you're describing, doesn't necessarily relate to improvisation so much as it relates to kind of the engagement of the intellect and the mind and kind of the body. And so I'm curious if you can talk us a little bit through that method and even how it inspired or it helped shape tonight's performance.
Well, apart from the amount of dopamine you would get and the good energy you would get from music, whether you're performing it or even listening to it, in whichever genre, whether it's an expression or if it is an experience, sound is creation, and with no sound, we would not be able to manifest different levels of connectivity to self and to others. The perspective is connecting cognitive enhancement, cognition with neuroscience, the brain function, how do we actually function and how do we make decisions? So it's not limited or channeled only towards performing. It's a tool towards enabling decision-making, creativity, leadership, all based upon the fact of how conscious and subconscious function. And we know in many aspects of how we survive, the subconscious actually functions at almost 70% of our function. And then, so it's empowering the ability to make faster decisions with precision, and speed of making a decision is not necessarily the element, it's not necessarily the priority, but it's one of the priorities in a whole perspective of how we can function. I have to mention that since my childhood in Baghdad, I was fascinated by artificial intelligence and robotics and the idea of connecting that to sound and how we can connect the brain into functioning at different levels of beyond probability and inevitability.
Sure.
So the idea is to connect the brain function, neuroscience, cognitive enhancement, to the ability of empowering self towards beyond Maslow's pyramid, to empower self-recognition and self-conceptualization, not to be intimidated, not to be necessarily enslaved by the force of radicalization, or affected so negatively by circumstance. And I have to assure that this was not an experiment when I have done this extensively, and we still do, within the capacity of peace through arts in different parts of Iraq and the Middle East, and even actually part of Europe, with the migrants, the impoverished orphans, ISIS survivors. I had wished to include the ISIS families that are living in different, well, this is becoming a hot topic again pretty soon after the rapid developments in northern Syria. And I think the government in Iraq is willing to, or there was, I think His Excellency, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, had mentioned something today about Iraq accepting these some of the former fighters for their trials in Iraq. But I don't want to focus on this. The focus is on the other side of function as a preventive approach and as a proactive approach to prevent escalation, to prevent terrorizing, to prevent radicalization, but without politicizing art.
Mm.
So it is indeed a wide spectrum of multifacets, I think, that would include science, cognition, the psychology, the psyche of how we function, at the same speed of how communication is rapidly developing and changing. I don't believe anymore in developing countries and third world countries, and because there's so much shared. The younger generation is sharing so much, and there's a high level of connectivity that is achieved, and we can see it obviously even in different parts of the world with people protesting or seeking a certain means of expression. So how does it function? It needs probably another session of going into details, but simply said, it is empowering self and empowering the ability to transcend beyond obstacles of instability through self-realization and self-conceptualization and recognition, and then connecting to others through the therapeutic approach of music, in performance and in actual because it's a form of expression, apart from being a science. One of the major 7 sciences that we know throughout history is music. So I was arguing in Iraq and in Tunisia also, when we were functioning closer to some areas where ISIS fighters were recruited, to enable people to have a different approach without channeling our function only towards what is happening with this new wave of function beyond the roots beyond its roots in Afghanistan and other parts of the world. This was actually almost exported into Iraq. There was a basic, inevitably, because of disagreement and due to other issues. But it comes back to, how do we make a choice? Even genetically, we don't know. Maybe all of us, we have a little ISIS in every one of us. How do we refine, and how do we reach a level not to allow this to occur and to change into something that is very, that is extremely negative and circuitous and malicious and aggressive and
Are there any specific moments you can think of, because your foundation does so much educational work with young people in situations of tension and situations of transition? Are there any moments that come to mind in which you've seen music become kind of this connective tissue to build kind of bridges in communities?
Absolutely.
What does that look like?
Well, I can give you, or give our audience, a wide list of achievements that were not necessarily sponsored at the highest level with our minimum resources and dedication. Millions and billions of euros and dollars were spent in Iraq and other parts of the Middle East, not on organizations like ours, but an approach to resolve things. But we managed otherwise. Actually, recently in Mosul, Nineveh, I'm not focusing only on Mosul, but Nineveh as part of Iraq and part of the Middle East, that had a certain that has a certain history. It was extremely sad to realize that Nineveh, with the interfaith and multi-religious foundation of and the history that's there, was only becoming famous due to what had happened in June 2014. 12 live concerts were given in the city of Mosul, both sides across the bridge, east and west, although I hate this terminology, but across both sides of the city, that had Christian, Jewish, Muslim music from 7 centuries history of that place, performed in the streets of Mosul with an audience that is so much wanting to be part of civility and part of expression and part of a homogeneous spectrum of existence and coexistence. And when it comes to people, there is a level to instill and empower integration and mutual understanding beyond disagreement, I think.
Yeah.
And we have seen it in other parts of the Middle East and the world, with all the divisive impact of politics. At the end, people, due to economical reasons, coexistence, history, future, or the ability to make a choice. It's about making a choice, how to empower people to make a choice, and to recognize law and order and the necessity for an organized life, as opposed to cantons and imprisonments, there due to political and or economical function.
Sure.
So yes, so we had 12 concerts during Ramadan, and Ramadan is a holy month of feast in Islam, which is similar to the three Abrahamic religions, the other two Abrahamic religions. Actually, when you look at it, there are so many similarities, but people are not contesting things. They're either agreeing on being against or agreeing on being on the same side of agreement. So we're approaching, we're encouraging debates, healthy disagreements, talks, and basically experiencing things in life that do matter. I was told that Mosul did not have a city that is full of culture and beauty and good food and good history, and Limassol, which my grandfather found one of them actually in last century with the British excavation missions to that part of Iraq. So beyond the monopolization and beyond the impact of politicizing matters, it is of a great success, I would assure, to adopt the path of connectivity and the path of mutual understanding and coexistence and self-recognition, and then mutual integration through means of soft powers and music in particular.
Just to open it up to the audience, are there any questions? There are mics that are going to be coming down either side. Yes. Just wait for the mic for 1 second.
Hi. Thank you. Performing in an environment where there was just an incredible amount of violence, were you ever in danger? You must have been in danger of your own life.
Yes, I was.
Yes.
I got divorced because of that. Cost me my.
I don't want you to talk about your divorce, but could you talk about the danger aspect and how were you received? I mean, it must have been.
How many threats?
Well,
countless,
and just how were you received in the hearing?
Well, thank you. I assure you, it was extremely positive. It is still, if I understand what you mean by perceived, meaning the populace, the audience, whoever was there. Or the other side of the equation, people who disagreed with I was lucky in some cases, I am still, to some extent, and I was vigilant in other cases. It wasn't about it was more of us. So this immersion, the immersive experience of including, not endangering others, but clearly sharing, and I usually say horizontally and vertically, meaning with different layers of the intellectual backgrounds and cultural backgrounds and societal, social backgrounds and any sort of being, we share a message of what is it that we have to do proactively to defy that. So we managed. I say we, meaning in parts of Iraq where we functioned and still hope to do so. We can't turn to. I have to admit the different organizational efforts with the government were also of extreme importance and necessity. And we did actually get the help of the police, local police, the army, in cases when the government was realizing, I mean the Iraqi government in these areas, that we were actually functioning in favor of peace and stabilization, and without politicizing. People can disagree as much as they want, and they should. It's healthy, but without endangering properties, the lives of others. And that's the whole concept of disagreement and how we can alleviate, how we can refine and develop. So yes, well, I survived 16 car bombs and 4 assassination attempts. And a divorce.
Question from back there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. As an American and Iraqi, so for an American, I thank you for being here, and then as a New Yorker, for being here on 9/11 for 9/11. It's a great tribute to your character. So thank you so much. And then as an Iraqi who grew up part of my life in Iraq, I congratulate you on doing all this, and I'm hoping to. And as a side comment, I took my wife and daughter for the first time. My daughter is 16 years old, goes to New York to a private school here in the city, so first time in Baghdad, and had a great experience in Mutanabbi Street, where on a Friday you have close to 10,000 people buying books on the street, which if you collect all of Barnes and Nobles in this country, you will not find 10,000 people in any store, in all of the stores. So it's a great cultural experience. So I'm optimistic, just like you, about the story of Iraq or coming back. So my question is, how far have you gone to build to build back the musical infrastructure, not only in Mosul, but also in Baghdad or Basra or Najaf or Karbala or anywhere from east to west, north to south? And thank you again.
Thank you for a practical question. And don't open Barnes and Nobles in Mutanabbi. As a business plan, no franchising. They're fine with their. So in terms of performances, and I'm not going to talk about the negativity of function, because in some cases you get even endangered by a sort of unhealthy competition. And this is possibly due to different reasons within the structure, the structure of the area over there, whether it's Iraq or other parts of the Middle East. But it's very evident, it's very obvious in cases extremely impactful negatively over there. So, however, referring to the positive impact, actually the cities you mentioned all witnessed functions of peace through arts, our peace nights, I call them, people whom we've encouraged and supported. In Basra, Karbala, I was hoping for Al-Anbar, Nineveh as a whole, and other parts of Iraq. So the symphony had functioned and performed in all parts of Iraq. I had a plan and a vision, but I think I was functioning faster than the Ministry of Culture. On a it was too much. It was too much of a success that in those years, 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then 14, 15, and 16, when I decided to leave the symphony due to lack of vision and lack of the ability to function. And this is not against the governmental scene over there. It's just, it was a call to find a good equilibrium, a balance that would make things work, because culture is needed. And when oil dries out, we can flood the area with culture. And it can turn into a philanthropic work, can turn into a whole system of development. So to be practical, in Basra, Karbala, Baghdad, Mosul, Ramadi, and I recall, probably I would have to remember 6 or 7 other cities, but they were included in our activities. Now, you have to remember that it's still a transitional era in how things function and what kind of priorities you would identify in a country like Iraq. I consider Ministry of Culture as being سيادية, as one of the major entities of a major role towards stabilization and development, as much as the Army, the Ministry of Defense, the Interior, the Foreign Affairs, the intelligence, the industry, the whole structure. So, being part of a region that is also witnessing instability, I do believe what the people in Iraq had achieved so far is of a great respect, as well as the ability for the government to, whether you agree or disagree with the Iraqi government, that's irrelevant at this stage, but the ability to be able to function in the most endangered times of the region. So we did function, and we still are, and we're hoping that the vision will take us to the rest of, as I said, maybe I was too fast or speedy for the tempo of things over there, because for every governorate I had an idea of a marching cultural convoy that would reach from the south, will pass by the central Iraq, and then from the central Iraq will reach the west, and then from the west will reach the north, and so forth. But it's a huge vision. It needs lots of different dots to be, different needs to be met. But it's non-stop. Iraq, as much as New York, as much as Tokyo, as much as other countries, is a vibrant nation and a vibrant society, and a wide spectrum of ethnicities and religions and so forth and so on. Let's look at the positive impact of what can be achieved beyond the problems again.
So just to bring tonight's program to a close, I would like to thank you, Maestro, for sharing your time with us. And hopefully for everyone, this evening's experience has kind of has brought everyone together in kind of the spontaneous composition that we've discussed. As someone who's worked for this museum for many years now, seeing our beam signing messages projected behind you was another spontaneous act of composition for those who participated in that, and really understanding that your expression, your musical expression, combined with the expression of so many people who have visited here, was really cumulatively a sense of resilience and resistance and peace through art and creation. We do have a one last question or comment from one of our distinguished guests. Thank you.
Thank you.
Iraq is culture. Iraq is history. Music. What Karim was telling you, the picture. Iraq witness for the last 60 years. The state, structure, difficult. We are building ourselves. What Karim was telling you, the positive stuff. 9/11 memorial is another picture of change of world, affecting the society, collapse. In 2003, they to rebuild it. They decided the Daesh result, third of the Iraqi part, six provinces, completely, 6 million people. Big time. Karim Wasfi. I'm very proud. See, Karim Wasfi. The last thing I will finish that my brother Karim mentioned that foreign minister here the European are pressing on Iraq to accept those foreign so it is not our responsibility to bring them to Iraq. It's the European country to take their
Absolutely.
using.
Absolutely.
They are saying we accept the Iraqi fighters only to bring them to Iraq. But not the European. But the European, they don't want them. They want to bring them. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to see Karim here. And another Karim. We have plenty of Karim, many Karim.
No. I would like to thank Your Excellency. I would like to thank you definitely. I was going to proceed with this. I would like to sincerely thank you and this great team of vibrant, lovely, adequate individuals, hardworking, Beth, Harmony, Henry, and everyone else who was here. If I think, as I've mentioned earlier, the families of the fallen ones, whether in New York and other parts of the world, should probably know already, but should feel happy and the solace of being in a situation for the fallen ones in this building to be taken care of by people like yourself and every other great person I have met in this foundation organization. So thank you for what you do. I would like to also thank the ladies and gentlemen who shared this experience, and very quickly and promptly, the idea of the instant composition are actually based upon connecting to every one of us and connecting to self with no preconceived notions. It's the excitement and the stimuli that we can sense in the unexpected. And then instantly, I'm classically trained, and it was very extremely odd to shift back and forth between the repertoire that I know. But it is empowered by the energy of transcendence and the energy of every individual in time and space in a resonant impact that will resonate within everyone's imagination and history and the concept towards the future. So that's the concept of the instant compositions that connects, that connectivity that we need to enable us to transcend beyond obstacles and every negative aspect of life. So thank you again.
That's a way of saying thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.